The dealer thought it was a joke. Had to be a joke. November 3rd, 1986, Patterson John Deere dealership, Waterloo, Iowa. Thursday afternoon, 2:37 p.m. The showroom was empty except for dealer Rick Patterson reviewing another dismal sales report. Farm crisis was destroying his business. Sold 3 tractors all year. Should have sold 40 by now. An old pickup truck pulled into the parking lot. 1972 Ford. Rust eating the fenders. Exhaust pipe held on with wire. Muffler dragging. The truck coughed smoke pulling into a space. Rick watched from his office window, probably another farmer wanting to cry about the crisis. Or worse, wanting credit he couldn't qualify for. The driver got out. Man maybe 60 years old, wearing coveralls so faded the original blue was almost white. Work boots with holes. Flannel shirt with patches. Looked like he'd been farming since dirt was invented and hadn't bought clothes since. The man walked into the showroom. Rick smelled him before hearing him. Diesel fuel, manure, sweat, old machinery grease, the smell of farming. "Help you?" Rick asked without much interest. The farmer looked around the showroom, at the shiny new tractors, the implements with fresh paint, the financing signs promising low rates. "Need to talk about buying some equipment." Rick perked up slightly. "What are you looking for?" "Everything." "Everything meaning what exactly?" 4 tractors, 2 combines, planter, disc, cultivator, sprayer, grain cart, couple semis, shop tools, complete farming operation." Rick blinked. This guy in patched coveralls wanted to buy enough equipment to farm several thousand acres. That's a substantial purchase, talking maybe $2 million in equipment. "About that, yeah." Rick studied the farmer. Coveralls from the 70s, truck from the 70s. Probably hadn't spent $1 on himself in decades. And he was talking about $2 million in equipment. "Sir, I appreciate your interest, but in this economy banks aren't lending, especially not to farmers, especially not $2 million. Do you have financing arranged?" "Don't need financing." "You have a co-signer then? Family member with assets?" "Don't need a co-signer neither." Rick's patience was thinning. Another dreamer wasting his time. "Sir, $2 million is serious money. How exactly do you plan to pay for all this equipment?" The farmer reached into his coverall pocket, pulled out a folded envelope, set it on Rick's desk. Rick opened it. Inside was a cashier's check. From First National Bank of Cedar Falls, made out to cash or bearer. Amount $2,200,000. Rick stared, looked at the farmer, back at the check. This was real. The check was real. This farmer in patched coveralls and holy boots had $2 million. "Where did you—" Rick stopped. Wasn't his business. "So can we talk equipment or not?" Rick's mind raced. $2 million sale would save his dealership, would prove to his banker he could still move inventory, would be the biggest sale in dealership history. "Yes, absolutely. Let's talk equipment. What exactly do you need?" The farmer pulled out a handwritten list on notebook paper, listed every piece of equipment, specific models, specific configurations. This wasn't casual browsing. This was planned purchasing. "I need 4 50/50 tractors, cab, duals, weights, 2 90/60 combines with 6-row corn heads and 15-foot grain heads, 1 16-row planter with liquid fertilizer, 1 32-foot disc, 1 30-foot field cultivator, 1 60-foot sprayer, 1 600-bushel grain cart, 2 grain semis with hopper bottoms, plus shop equipment, welder, torches, air compressor, full mechanic setup." Rick calculated mentally. 4 50/50s at roughly $200,000 each, $800,000. 2 combines at $400,000 each, $800,000. Other equipment, maybe $600,000. Total, $2.2 million. Exactly what the check was for. "You've done your homework. Been planning for 3 years, saved for 32 years, ready to buy now." Rick had questions, so many questions, but he had a $2 million customer standing in his showroom. Questions could wait. Let me check inventory. See what I have available versus what needs ordering. Rick spent the next hour reviewing inventory. In 1986, farm crisis meant dealers had equipment they couldn't sell. Rick had plenty available. 4 50/50s, had 2 in stock, could get 2 more from factory in 3 weeks. 2 combines, had 1 in stock, could transfer 1 from Des Moines location. Other equipment, all available either in stock or quick delivery. Rick returned to the farmer. I can do this. 2 tractors and 1 combine today. Rest delivered within 4 weeks. Total price, $2,180,000. I'll throw in delivery and setup. Deal? The farmer considered. Make it $2 million even and we have a deal. Rick's sales manager would kill him for discounting $180,000, but $2 million cash today versus 0 was easy math. Deal. They shook hands. The farmer endorsed the cashier's check, handed it to Rick. Rick held $2 million, largest check he'd ever touched, from a farmer who looked like he couldn't afford lunch. I'll need your name for the paperwork. Henry Chen, C-H-E-N. Mr. Chen, can I ask you something? Sure. You don't look like a guy with $2 million. Henry smiled slightly. That's the point. People leave you alone if they think you're poor. I've been farming 800 acres for 32 years, living cheap, saving everything. Nobody knew. Everybody thought I was barely surviving. Truth is, I've been building capital since 1954. Rick processed this. 32 years of saving. 32 years of discipline. I gross about $200,000 annually. Operating costs are $60,000. Living expenses are $12,000. That leaves $128,000 to save. Times 32 years. Over $4 million total accumulated. You have $4 million. Had. Spent $2 million today. Got $2 million left. Enough to operate for 20 years without farming another acre. But I'll keep farming. I love it. Just wanted proper equipment before I get too old. Rick was stunned. This farmer had $4 million in the bank, lived like he had nothing, and just spent half of it in 15 minutes. Why buy now? Market's terrible. You could wait for prices to drop more. Market's at bottom. Equipment prices won't go lower. Labor's available. Lots of farmers quitting. Need work. Input costs are low. This is perfect time to expand. While everyone's scared, I'm buying. Rick saw the brilliance. Henry was counter-cyclical, saved during boom times, bought during bust, exactly what smart investors do. You're expanding? Buying 1,200 acres from 3 neighbors who are getting foreclosed, 800 per acre, 960,000 total. Already arranged with the bank, paying cash. Adds to my current 800, 2,000 acres total. Need the equipment to farm it. Rick understood now. Henry wasn't just buying equipment. He was capitalizing on the crisis. Buying land cheap. Buying equipment cheap. Positioning for when markets recovered. That's smart. That's patient. I waited 32 years for this opportunity. Lived poor to be ready. Now I'm ready. Rick processed the paperwork. 4 hours of documents. Titles, bills of sale, warranty registrations, delivery schedules. At 6:47 p.m., Henry Chen owned $2 million in John Deere equipment, paid in full, no debt, no financing, cash. Henry drove away in his rusty truck. 2 brand-new tractors and a combine sat in Patterson dealership, waiting for transport trucks to deliver them. Rick stood in his showroom holding the deposit slip. $2 million, deposited, cleared, real. His sales manager walked in. Did that old farmer actually buy something? He bought $2 million in equipment. Paid cash. What, $2 million? Checks already deposited. 4 tractors, 2 combines, full operation. Paid in full, cash. The sales manager looked at the deposit slip, whistled. Who is this guy? Henry Chen. Been farming 800 acres outside Cedar Falls. Saved for 32 years. Has $4 million in the bank. Lives like a pauper. Just bought 2 million in equipment to expand to 2,000 acres. 4 million, looking like that? Exactly, nobody knew. He wanted it that way. Udo word spread fast. By next morning, everyone in Waterloo knew. Old farmer Henry Chen paid 2 million cash for equipment, looked broke but had millions saved. The bank confirmed it. Henry Chen had accounts totaling $4.1 million, all saved over 32 years from farming 800 acres. How? Simple discipline. Henry's annual budget since 1954. Gross farm income, averaging 200,000, varied by year. Operating costs, averaging 60,000. Living expenses, averaging 12,000. Saved, averaging 128,000 annually over 32 years. 4.1 million accumulated. How did Henry keep living expenses at 12,000 annually? Same house from 1954. Never remodeled. Same truck, bought 1972 model, used in 78 for 1,200. Kept it 14 years. Same clothes, bought at Farm Supply, wore until they literally fell apart. Food budget $60 weekly, basic staples, no restaurants, no vacations, no hobbies, no entertainment, just farming and saving. Henry lived on roughly what a factory worker made while earning 200,000. Banked the difference for 32 years. People thought he was poor. Henry was building wealth quietly. The equipment arrived over 3 weeks. 4 John Deere 50/50s, beautiful green and yellow, 2 90/60 combines, massive machines, all the implements, the semis, everything. Henry's farm transformed overnight, from modest operation with old equipment to state-of-the-art farming enterprise. Neighbors watched. Some were jealous. How can Henry afford all that? Some were skeptical. He must have inherited money. Some were angry. He's been lying about being poor all these years. Henry didn't care about opinions. He'd executed his plan. 32 years of saving, 3 years of planning, 4 weeks of purchasing. Operation complete. Spring 1987, Henry farmed 2,000 acres with his new equipment. Everything worked perfectly. Modern technology, precision farming, efficient operation. His yields increased. Corn averaged 170 bushels per acre versus previous 140. Soybeans averaged 52 versus previous 43. Better equipment meant better farming. His operating costs per acre decreased. New equipment was more efficient, less fuel, less labor, less downtime. Economics improved. Gross income jumped to 460,000. Operating costs 140,000. Net 320,000. Henry saved 280,000 that year, added to his remaining 2 million. Back over 2.2 million in 1 year. By 1990, Henry had rebuilt his savings to 3 million while farming profitably. The land he'd bought for 960,000 in 86 was worth 1.8 million by 90, doubled in 4 years. The equipment he'd bought for 2 million was still worth about 1.4 million, depreciated but retained value. Total net worth 1990, approximately 6.2 million. Land, equipment, savings combined. Henry had gone from 4 million to 6 million in 4 years by buying at bottom of market. In 1995, Henry retired at 69, sold the operation. Land, 2,000 acres at 2,000 per acre. 4 million. Equipment, still viable, worth about 800,000. Total sale, 4.8 million. Plus remaining savings, 1.9 million. Total net worth at retirement, 6.7 million. Henry Chen started with nothing in 1954, retired with nearly 7 million 41 years later. Never borrowed, never spent foolishly, just saved relentlessly. At his retirement auction in 95, hundreds attended. The 4 John Deere 50/50s he'd bought in 86 sold for 900,000 total, still valuable 9 years later. A reporter interviewed Henry. "You lived poor for 32 years while having millions. Why?" Henry's answer, "Wealth is what you save. not what you spend. I could have lived like I was rich, bought new trucks every 3 years, remodeled the house, taken vacations. But every dollar spent is a dollar not saved. Every dollar not saved is a dollar not growing. I chose to live below my means dramatically, drove old truck, wore old clothes, ate cheap food, looked poor. But I was building wealth the whole time. People judged me, thought I was struggling. That was fine. Let them think that. Kept them from asking for money. Kept me focused on saving. The $2 million I spent in '86, that was strategic deployment of capital. Right time, right price, right opportunity. I'd waited 32 years for that moment. When it came, I was ready. Most people spend when times are good, save when times are bad. I did opposite. Saved when times were good, spent when times were bad. Buy low, sell high. Basic investing. Looking poor while being rich is powerful position. Nobody bothers you. Nobody expects anything. You can move quietly, build wealth silently, then act decisively when opportunity appears. That's what I did. Saved in silence, bought at bottom, sold at top, retired with millions, all because I looked poor while being rich. The interview was published in Farm Journal, generated 4,000 responses. Half were admiring. That's brilliant wealth building. Half were critical. He should have helped struggling neighbors instead of hoarding. Henry didn't care about criticism. He'd executed his plan, achieved his goals, secured his retirement. That was enough. Rick Patterson's dealership survived the crisis largely because of Henry's $2 million purchase. That sale plus commission gave Rick breathing room to restructure. By 90, his business was stable. Rick never forgot Henry. He saved my dealership. $2 million cash when everyone else was broke. And he looked like the poorest farmer I'd ever seen. Taught me never to judge by appearance. At Rick's retirement party in 2008, he told the story again. November '86, old farmer walks in wearing coveralls from the '70s, driving truck from the '70s. I thought he was broke. He handed me a check for $2 million, paid cash. Biggest sale of my career, from the guy who looked like he couldn't afford lunch. Henry Chen taught me wealth hides, success disguises. Rich people often look poor, poor people often look rich. Appearances deceive, always. That $2 million sale built this dealership, kept me afloat during crisis, allowed me to survive and eventually thrive. All because one disciplined farmer saved for 32 years and bought when everyone else was scared. I'll never forget walking into the bank with that check. Teller looked at me like I was crazy. $2 million from a farmer nobody knew had money. She called the bank president to verify. He confirmed Henry Chen had $4 million in accounts. We all learned that day. The poorest-looking farmer in the county was actually the richest, and he'd been hiding it successfully for 3 decades. That's the Henry Chen lesson. Save in silence, build in private, strike when opportunity appears. Then let everyone else figure out what happened. He shut everyone up with $2 million in cash. Nobody could say anything. He had the money. He spent it wisely. He built wealth. End of story. I respect that more than anything. The discipline, the patience, the strategic thinking, and the humility to look poor while being rich. Henry Chen didn't need to prove anything, didn't need recognition, didn't need admiration, just needed to execute his plan. And he did it perfectly. Standing ovation. 5 minutes. Everyone knew someone like Henry, or wished they were like Henry, the farmer who saved in secret and struck at the perfect moment. Henry Chen died in 2009 at 83, left $7.2 million to his children and grandchildren. None of them knew he was wealthy until he died. He'd kept the secret even from family. His will included a letter. It explained everything. The 32 years of saving, the $2 million purchase, the strategic expansion, the quiet accumulation of wealth. The letter ended. I lived poor to die rich. Most people live rich and die poor. I chose differently. The discipline was hard. The sacrifice was real. But the result was worth it. You inherit millions because I spent nothing. Remember that. Wealth is built through saving, not spending. I proved it. Now it's yours. His children donated the letter to Iowa Farm Heritage Museum. It's displayed alongside photos of Henry in his patched coveralls, standing next to the $2 million in John Deere equipment. The exhibit is titled, "The Poorest-Looking Millionaire, Henry Chen's Strategy of Secret Wealth." Thousands visit annually. Read the letter. See the photos. Learn the lesson. You don't have to look wealthy to be wealthy. Appearances mean nothing. Discipline means everything. Save in silence. Strike when ready. Build wealth quietly. That's the Henry Chen way. The dealer thought he didn't have a penny. Henry paid $2 million in cash, shut everyone up, proved wealth hides in plain sight. That's power, that's strategy, that's discipline, that's Henry Chen, the farmer who looked broke but was rich. The man who saved for 32 years to buy at the perfect moment. The guy who showed up in patched coveralls and paid $2 million cash. Everyone learned. Wealth hides, success disguises, never judge by appearance, always look deeper. Henry Chen taught that lesson better than anyone. $2 million in cash from the poorest-looking farmer in Iowa. Nobody saw it coming. Everybody learned from it. The dealer shut his mouth. The farmer paid his money. The lesson lived forever. That's the power of looking poor while being rich. That's what happened when Henry Chen walked into that dealership in November '86. $2 million in cash. Patched coveralls. No explanation needed. Just results. Henry Chen, the poorest-looking millionaire. The farmer who shut everyone up with $2 million in cash. Legend. The 32 years. How Henry built $4 million in silence. To understand how Henry Chen accumulated $4 million while looking broke, you need to see the details. The year-by-year discipline, the daily choices, the relentless focus. Year 1, 1954. Henry started farming at age 28, bought 800 acres for $120,000, got loan from his parents who owned a restaurant in Des Moines. They'd saved $40,000, loaned it to Henry at 3% interest. Henry's budget year 1, borrowed $80,000 from bank, $40,000 from parents, annual payment, roughly $18,000 total, gross farm income, $64,000 corn and beans, operating costs, $32,000, net before debt service, $32,000, after debt payments, $14,000 remaining, living expenses, $8,000, basic survival, saved, $6,000. Year 1 wasn't about getting rich. Was about survival and establishing the pattern. Live cheap, save everything possible. Build foundation. Years 2 through 12, 1955 through 66. Henry paid off his parents in 7 years, $84,000 total including interest. Paid off bank loan in 12 years, $142,000 total including interest. During these years, Henry developed extreme frugality. Housing. Original farmhouse from 1942 came with property. Henry never updated it. No remodeling, no improvements, fixed what broke. That was it. House was livable. That was enough. Transportation, bought 1958 Chevy pickup, used in '62 for $800. Drove it 14 years. Sold it for $150 when transmission died. Net cost, $650 over 14 years. $46 per year for transportation. Clothing, work clothes from Farm Supply. $8 for coveralls that lasted 3 to 4 years. $12 for boots that lasted 2 years. Bought new only when old literally fell apart. Patched everything. Food. Weekly grocery bill averaged $12. Rice, beans, potatoes, flour, sugar, coffee, basics. No restaurants, no processed food, no luxuries. Survival calories only. Entertainment, none. No movies, no vacations, no hobbies that cost money. Entertainment was reading library books and listening to radio. Total annual living expenses during these years, roughly $8,000 to $10,000. During these years, Henry's farm income grew. 55, 72,000 gross. 60, 96,000 gross. 66, 128,000 gross. By 66, year 12, Henry owned the land free and clear. No debt. Total paid to parents and bank. 226,000 including interest. More importantly, Henry had saved during these years. Even while making debt payments, saved about 4,000 annually average. 12 years times 4,000 equals 48,000 accumulated. Year 12 totals, 48,000 in savings. 800 acres owned outright. Operation profitable. Years 13 through 24. 1967 through 78. With debt eliminated, Henry's saving accelerated dramatically. New budget pattern, gross income averaging 160,000, operating costs averaging 55,000, net 105,000, living expenses still only 10 to 12,000 annually, saved 93,000 per year average. Henry's living expenses barely changed, despite no longer having debt payments. He could have upgraded lifestyle. Instead, kept living poor, banked the difference. 12 years times 93,000 equals 1,116,000 saved during this period. Added to previous 48,000 equals 1,164,000 total by 1978. But there was more. Henry invested savings conservatively. CDs at the bank, 8 to 12% interest during 70s. Money compounded. Actual balance by 78. Approximately 1,400,000 including interest. Henry was 52 years old, had saved 1.4 million while looking broke, drove 1972 Ford pickup bought used, wore clothes from 60s, lived in house from 40s. Nobody knew. Years 25 through 32, 1979 through 86. The final 8 years before the big purchase were peak saving years. Farm income increased during early 80s, boom, 79, 180,000 gross, 80, 220,000 gross, 81, 240,000 gross. Then crisis hit. Prices collapsed, but Henry's operation was debt-free. He survived while others failed. 82, 160,000 gross, 83, 140,000 gross, 84, 150,000 gross, 85, 170,000 gross, 86, 190,000 gross. 8-year average, 190,000 gross. Operating costs average 60,000, net average 130,000, living expenses still only 12,000, saved average 118,000 annually. 8 years times 118,000 equals 944,000 saved. Added to 1.4 million from 78 equals 2.34 million, plus interest and compounding. Actual balance, November 86, $4,100,000. Henry was 60 years old, had saved for 32 years, looked broke, was millionaire 4 times over. The 3 years of planning, 83 through 86. While saving relentlessly, Henry also planned meticulously, saw farm crisis developing in 83, recognized opportunity. Year 1 of planning. 83. Henry identified 3 neighbors in trouble. All had over-leveraged in late 70s. All were heading toward foreclosure. Peterson Farm, 400 acres, debt 160,000. Williams Farm, 320 acres, debt 140,000. Mitchell Farm, 480 acres, debt 200,000 total, 1,200 acres that would likely be foreclosed and sold cheap. Henry approached the bank quietly. First National Bank of Cedar Falls. Spoke with President directly. When these farms get foreclosed, I want to buy them. Cash, $800 per acre. 960,000 total. Bank president was surprised. Henry, we didn't know you had that kind of money. Nobody does. I've been saving quietly. Want to keep it that way until I'm ready to act. Why are you telling me now? So you don't sell to anyone else. When foreclosures happen, I want first option. I'll pay cash, close fast, no financing contingencies. Easy transaction for you. Bank president agreed. Kept Henry's offer confidential. When foreclosures happened, Henry would get first chance. Year 2 of planning. 84. Henry planned equipment purchases, researched models, calculated needs, 2,000 acres required, 4 tractors for field work, 2 combines for harvest, modern planter for precision planting, large implements for efficiency, grain handling equipment, transportation trucks. Henry calculated total cost, approximately $2 million for complete operation. He visited Patterson dealership. Spoke with Rick, didn't reveal plans, just asked questions. What would 4 50/50s cost? What about 90/60 combines? What's delivery time? Rick answered questions, thinking Henry was just dreaming. Never imagined Henry could actually buy. Henry made lists, exact models, exact configurations, down to final detail. When time came to buy, he'd know exactly what to order. Year 3 of planning. 85 and early 86. Foreclosures started. Peterson lost his farm March 85. Williams lost his August 85. Mitchell lost his February 86. Each time, bank contacted Henry. The property's available, 800 per acre. Still interested? Yes. When can we close? 2 weeks. Henry bought all 3 properties in 11 months. Total $960,000. Paid cash. No financing. Closed fast. Community was shocked. How can Henry afford to buy 1,200 acres? He must have inherited money. Henry said nothing. Let them speculate. Kept his wealth secret. By November 86, Henry owned 2,000 acres. Had planned his equipment purchases. Had saved over $4 million. Was ready to execute. The day of reckoning, November 3rd, 86. Rick Patterson's perspective of that day revealed the shock. 2:37 p.m. Old truck pulled up. Rick thought, great, another broke farmer. 2:42 p.m. Henry walked in. Rick smelled poverty, saw patches. Assumed destitution. 2:45 p.m. Henry said he wanted to buy everything. Rick thought it was joke. 2:51 p.m. Henry showed the check, $2,200,000. Rick's mind went blank. This couldn't be real. 2:54 p.m. Rick called bank. Verified check was legitimate. Henry Chen had $4.1 million in accounts. Check was good. 3:08 p.m. Rick's hands shook, reviewing inventory. Biggest sale of his career from poorest-looking customer he'd ever served. 4:32 p.m. Paperwork started. Rick kept glancing at Henry, trying to reconcile appearance with wealth. Couldn't process it. 6:47 p.m. Final signatures. $2 million sale complete, paid in full. Cash. Rick's journal entry that night. Today I learned everything I thought I knew about judging people was wrong. Farmer who looked like he lived on welfare just paid $2 million cash. I'll never judge by appearance again. Ever. The community reaction. November through December 86. News spread like wildfire. By next morning, everyone in 3 counties knew. First reaction was disbelief. No way Henry Chen has that kind of money. There's a mistake. Then people started investigating, called banks, talked to dealers, verified the facts. It was true. Henry had paid $2 million cash. Second reaction was confusion. But Henry drives that terrible truck. Wears those awful clothes. Lives in that old house. How can he be rich? Then people started calculating. Wait, he's been farming 800 acres for 30 years. If he saved everything... Third reaction was anger from some. Henry's been lying to us. Pretending to be poor while he's actually rich. That's dishonest. Others defended him. He didn't lie. He just didn't advertise his wealth. Smart move. Some neighbors were bitter. I've been struggling for years. Henry could have helped. Instead, he just hoarded money. Others understood. Henry doesn't owe us anything. He saved his money. That's his right. The Peterson family was particularly angry. Henry bought our farm when we lost it, paid $800 per acre. He could have paid more. He could have helped us stay. Instead, he profited from our misery. Bank president responded when asked. Henry offered $800 per acre in '83 before foreclosures happened. That was market price then. He didn't lowball. He offered fair value and waited patiently. The truth was complex. Henry had played the long game, saved when others spent, waited while others panicked, bought when others couldn't. Was that exploitation or smart business? Depended on perspective. The operation, 87 through 95. Spring 87, Henry's new operation began. 4 John Deere 50/50s. Beautiful machines, each worth roughly $200,000. Henry hired 4 operators, all former farmers who'd lost their operations. He paid them well, $15 per hour, 40 hours weekly, plus harvest bonuses. Critics said, see, Henry's making money off the crisis, hiring desperate farmers cheap. Defenders said, Henry's paying above market rate, giving jobs to people who lost everything. He's helping. Truth was both. Henry was running a business, but he treated employees fairly. The combines arrived, 2 90/60 John Deeres, massive machines. Henry hired 2 operators for harvest season, paid them well, planting time. New 16-row planter worked perfectly. Precision planting, perfect spacing, optimal depth. Yields increased immediately. Harvest 87, 2,000 acres yielded. Corn, 1,000 acres at 170 bushels per acre, 170,000 bushels. Soybeans, 1,000 acres at 52 bushels per acre, 52,000 bushels. At market prices, roughly $460,000 gross. Operating costs with employees and larger operation, $140,000. Net, $320,000. Henry lived on $12,000, saved $308,000. Added to remaining $2.1 million from after equipment purchase. Balance, $2.4 million after 1 year. 88 through 94 followed similar pattern. Annual net averaging $300,000. Annual savings averaging $280,000. 6 years times $280,000. $1.68 million additional savings. By 1994, Henry's savings had rebuilt to approximately $4.1 million. Same as before the big purchase. He'd saved it all back in 8 years. Plus, land value had increased. 1,200 acres bought for $960,000 in 85 through 86 were worth $1.4 million by 94. 440,000 appreciation. Plus original 800 acres bought for $120,000 in 54 worth approximately $900,000 by 94. 780,000 appreciation. Plus equipment still worth about $800,000 even after depreciation. Total net worth 94, approximately $7 million. Henry was 68 years old, decided to retire. Put operation up for sale. The retirement sale, 1995. March 95, Henry listed the operation. Land, 2,000 acres at market average, 2,000 per acre. 4 million. Equipment, 8-year-old fleet, well-maintained, worth $800,000. Total asking price, $4.8 million. Young farmer named Thomas Rodriguez wanted to buy. Had family money, could afford it, offered $4.6 million. Henry accepted. Sale closed June 95. Henry received $4.6 million plus, kept his accumulated savings of approximately $1.9 million. Total cash after sale, $6.5 million. Henry was 69 years old, retired. Never had to work again, lived on investment income from $6.5 million, At 6% annual return, that generated $390,000 annually. Henry lived on $15,000, saved $375,000 even in retirement. The final years, 95 through 2009, Henry lived 14 years in retirement, never changed his lifestyle, still drove old truck, still wore old clothes, still lived in old house. People asked why. Henry, you have millions. Why live like you're poor? Henry's answer never changed. I lived poor for 41 years while building wealth. Why would I change now? I don't need fancy truck, don't need fancy clothes, don't need fancy house. What I have works fine. The money's for security, not spending. By 2009, when Henry died, his wealth had grown to $7.2 million through conservative investing and continued saving. He'd never told his children he was wealthy. They knew he farmed, thought he lived modestly because that's all he could afford, had no idea he had millions. When will was read, they were shocked. $7.2 million estate, split between 3 children and 5 grandchildren. The letter Henry left explained everything. Dear family, you're probably shocked reading this will. I never told you I was wealthy because I didn't want money to change our relationships. I wanted you to work hard, build your own success, not depend on inheritance. Now that I'm gone, the money is yours, but I want you to understand how it was built. Not through luck, not through inheritance, through discipline. I saved for 41 years, lived poor while being rich, denied myself luxuries others considered necessities, focused entirely on accumulating wealth. Why? Because I grew up poor during depression, saw my parents struggle, watched farmers lose everything in the 30s, swore I'd never be vulnerable like that, so I saved, relentlessly, obsessively. Everything I didn't absolutely need went into the bank. 41 years of discipline created $7 million. The $2 million I spent in '86, that wasn't spending for pleasure. That was strategic deployment of capital at optimal moment. I waited 32 years for that opportunity. When it came, I was ready. That's the lesson. Save in silence, build in private, strike when ready. Don't advertise, don't show off, just accumulate and execute. Most people will think I was cheap, stingy, miserly. They're right. I was all those things, but I was also strategic, patient, disciplined. The result? $7 million for my family, security for generations, all because I was willing to look poor while being rich. Don't waste this inheritance. Don't blow it on foolishness. Invest it, grow it, pass it on. Honor the discipline that created it. I lived poor so you could be rich. Remember that. Use it wisely. Love, Dad. The letter became public when children donated it to museum. It inspired thousands. The museum exhibit, 2010 through present Iowa Farm Heritage Museum, created permanent exhibit. The Millionaire in Patched Coveralls, Henry Chen's Life of Secret Wealth. The exhibit includes Henry's actual coveralls from '86, patched and faded. Photos of his rusty '72 Ford truck, the $2 million cashier's check, copy, documentation of every equipment purchase, financial records showing 41 years of saving, Henry's letter to his children, video interviews with people who knew him. Visitors spend hours at the exhibit, reading, reflecting, learning. Most common reaction: I complain about not having enough. Henry saved millions living on $12,000 annually. I spend more on coffee than he spent on everything. I have no excuse. School groups tour regularly. Teachers use Henry's story to teach. Financial discipline, delayed gratification, strategic patience, the power of compounding, avoiding lifestyle inflation, playing the long game business school study. Henry's strategy: counter-cyclical investing, capital preservation during boom, strategic deployment during bust, maintaining low overhead, long-term thinking, avoiding signaling wealth. The exhibit has become one of museums' most popular. Not because Henry was famous, because his strategy was replicable. You don't need to be genius, don't need lucky breaks, don't need special opportunities, just need discipline, patience, willingness to look poor while being rich. Henry proved it. 41 years, 12,000 annual living expenses, 7 million accumulated. Anyone can do the math. Few have the discipline. The Rick Patterson legacy. Rick Patterson told Henry's story hundreds of times over 22 years before retiring in 2008. Every new salesperson Rick hired heard it. Guy walked in looking broke, paid 2 million cash, never judged by appearance, ever. Rick's dealership culture changed after Henry. Sales staff learned to treat every customer with respect regardless of appearance. Never assume someone can't afford something based on how they look. This philosophy served Rick well. Over 22 years, he had 17 more Henry moments. Customers who looked modest but paid cash for substantial purchases. Total, from those 17, approximately 8 million in sales, all from people others might have dismissed. Rick attributed his dealership's success to Henry's lesson. Henry taught me to see past appearance, focus on the customer, listen to what they want, provide it if you can, don't judge. That philosophy built this business. At Rick's retirement, he gave each employee a framed photo. Picture of Henry Chen in his patched coveralls, standing next to 2 million in John Deere equipment. Caption: never judge wealth by appearance. The poorest-looking customer might be the richest. Treat everyone with respect. Rick Patterson. Those photos hung in every office, reminded staff daily. Look deeper. Wealth hides. The broader impact. How Henry changed a community. Henry Chen's story spread far beyond Waterloo, magazine articles, news features, eventually internet forums and YouTube videos. His strategy inspired thousands to adopt similar approaches: financial independence, retire early. FIRE movement embraced Henry's story. He saved 85% of income for 40 years, retired with millions. That's the ultimate FIRE success story. Frugality blogs featured Henry. If he can live on 12,000 annually while earning 200,000, you can cut your spending too. Anti-consumerism advocates used Henry as example. He proved you don't need stuff to be happy. Drove terrible truck, wore awful clothes, lived in old house, happier and richer than people spending everything they make. But critics existed too. Henry was cheap to the point of being cruel. Never helped struggling neighbors. Just hoarded money while others suffered. That's not admirable. That's selfish. He bought foreclosed farms from desperate families at bottom prices, profited from their misery. That's exploitation, not investing. Living on 12,000 annually meant no quality of life, no experiences, no joy, just accumulation for accumulation's sake. What's the point of being rich if you live like you're poor? The debate continues. Was Henry inspiring or awful, strategic or selfish, disciplined or miserly? Answer probably depends on your values. What do you prioritize, building wealth or enjoying life, security or experiences, independence or community? Henry chose wealth, security, and independence. Sacrificed enjoyment, experiences, and community connection, got exactly what he optimized for. The final lesson. What Henry proved. Regardless of opinion about Henry's choices, he proved several indisputable facts. 1. You can build substantial wealth on farming income, 200,000 annual gross income, 130,000 saved, 40 years, over 5 million accumulated. Math works. 2. Living expenses are highly flexible. Henry proved 12,000 annually is livable. Most Americans think 40,000 is minimum. Henry lived on 1/4 that amount. 3. Wealth can hide in plain sight. 4 million in the bank while looking broke. Nobody knew, nobody suspected. Appearance deceived completely. 4. Strategic patience beats reactive urgency. Henry waited 32 years for perfect moment. Others panicked and sold. He bought at bottom. Patience paid. 5. Counter-cyclical investing works. Save during boom, buy during bust. Simple, effective. Requires discipline most lack. 6. Lifestyle inflation is optional. Income increased from 60,000 to 200,000. Living expenses stayed at 12,000. That's choice. Most inflate lifestyle with income. Henry didn't. 7. Compound interest and time create wealth. 4% annual return for 40 years turns small savings into large fortune. Henry proved it. 8. You don't have to tell anyone you're rich. Henry kept wealth secret for 41 years. Nobody knew. Nobody had to know. Privacy is power. 9. Looking poor has advantages. People leave you alone. No requests for money, no expectations, no pressure. Freedom through perceived poverty. 10. The discipline required is extreme. 12,000 annual living expenses while earning 200,000 requires inhuman discipline. Most people can't do it, won't do it. That's why most people don't build millions. Henry Chen proved all of this, didn't theorize, didn't pontificate, just executed for 41 years. Result, $7 million. The dealer thought he didn't have a penny. Henry paid $2 million in cash, shut everyone up, proved wealth hides in patched coveralls. That's the story, that's the lesson, that's the Henry Chen legacy. 41 years of discipline, 7 million accumulated, 12,000 annual living expenses, 2 million deployed strategically, perfect execution, complete success. Look poor, be rich, save in silence, strike when ready. Let results speak. That's power, that's strategy, that's Henry Chen, the man who shut everyone up with 2 million in cash, the farmer who proved wealth hides in plain sight, the legend who lived poor to die rich. Never forget, appearances deceive, wealth hides, discipline wins, patience pays. Henry proved it all, 2 million in cash, patched coveralls, no apologies, just results. That's the Henry Chen way. That's what happened when the poorest-looking farmer in Iowa walked into a dealership and changed everything. The dealer learned, the community learned, the world learned. Wealth hides, success disguises, never judge by appearance, always look deeper. Henry Chen, the millionaire in patched coveralls, the man who shut everyone up, the legend, the 21st century perspective. How Henry's story resonates today. In 2024, 38 years after Henry's $2 million purchase, his story remains relevant, perhaps more relevant than ever. Modern wealth inequality has created two camps: those who believe wealth accumulation is impossible for average people, and those who believe discipline can still build fortunes. Henry Chen's story proves the second camp right. He wasn't born wealthy, didn't inherit money, didn't get lucky breaks, just saved relentlessly for 41 years on farming income. Can this be replicated today? Math says yes. Modern equivalent scenario: annual income, 160,000 upper middle class professional, living expenses, 30,000, aggressive frugality but doable, annual savings, 130,000, investment return, 7% annually average, time horizon, 35 years, result after 35 years, approximately $11 million. Henry's strategy works with modern numbers, requires same extreme discipline, but it works. Social media has amplified Henry's story. YouTube videos about him generate millions of views. Comments reveal two reactions: inspired. If Henry can save millions living on 12,000 annually, I can cut my spending and build wealth too. This motivates me. Defeated. Henry's strategy requires inhuman discipline I don't have. Plus he had farming income. I have student loans and rent. Can't compare. Both reactions miss the point. Henry's specific numbers aren't replicable for everyone. But his principles are universal. Spend dramatically less than you earn, save and invest the difference consistently. Maintain discipline over decades. Don't inflate lifestyle with income. Wait patiently for opportunities. Deploy capital strategically when they appear. Ignore others' opinions about your choices. Focus on long-term results over short-term pleasure. These principles work regardless of income level. Whether earning 60,000 or 600,000. Save large percentage. Invest consistently. Wait patiently. Build wealth. Henry proved this at scale. Others prove it smaller scale. Principles remain constant. Henry's grandchildren. The next chapter. Henry's 3 children received approximately $2 million each from his estate after taxes. His 5 grandchildren each received $400,000. What did they do with it? Results varied. Child 1 invested conservatively, turned $2 million into $3.4 million over 15 years, lives comfortably on investment income, honors Henry's discipline. Child 2 spent aggressively, new house, new cars, vacations, down to $400,000 after 15 years. Regrets not following Henry's example. Child 3 started business with the inheritance, failed, lost $800,000, rebuilt slowly, now has $1.2 million, learned expensive lessons. Grandchild 1 used $400,000 for medical school, now doctor, earning well, building own wealth. Thanks, Henry daily. Grandchild 2 blew through entire $400,000 in 6 years. Luxury spending, nothing left. Embarrassed to admit it. Grandchild 3 invested in index funds. Has grown $400,000 to $700,000 in 15 years, following Henry's patient approach. Grandchild 4 used $200,000 for house down payment. Invested remaining $200,000, building stable life, grateful for head start. Grandchild 5, still deciding, has $400,000 sitting in savings, afraid to invest, afraid to spend, paralyzed by responsibility. The varying outcomes prove inheriting wealth doesn't guarantee success, requires discipline to maintain. Most inherit and spend. Few inherit and grow. Henry would probably be disappointed in some outcomes, proud of others. But he'd understand, building wealth is harder than inheriting it, keeping wealth harder still. The ultimate truth, what the $2 million purchase represented. Henry's $2 million cash purchase in November '86 wasn't about tractors and combines, was about validation, proof, demonstration of principle. For 32 years, Henry lived poor while neighbors lived normal. They bought new trucks, remodeled homes, took vacations, lived comfortably. Henry wore patches, drove rust buckets, ate cheap food, looked struggling. Neighbors pitied him. Poor Henry, works so hard, has so little. Some mocked him. Henry's too cheap to buy a decent truck. Others dismissed him. Henry's not really farming, just surviving. For 32 years, Henry absorbed judgment silently, knew the truth, but never corrected anyone, let them think what they wanted. Then November 3rd, '86 arrived. Henry walked into that dealership, pulled out $2 million, bought complete farming operation, paid cash, message sent, judgment silenced, truth revealed. You thought I was poor. I'm a millionaire 4 times over. You thought I was struggling. I was building wealth. You thought I was failing. I was succeeding silently. Now you know. Deal with it. Henry never said those words. Didn't need to. The $2 million in cash said everything. That's power. That's validation. That's revenge for 32 years of being underestimated. The money was secondary. The vindication was primary. Henry proved everyone wrong with one transaction. They laughed at his patched coveralls. He paid $2 million cash. They mocked his rusty truck. He bought $2 million in equipment. They pitied his frugality. He retired a multi-millionaire. Final score: Henry won, everyone else learned. Wealth hides, success disguises. Never judge by appearance. The last word. Henry Chen died peacefully in his sleep April 17, 2009, age 83, in the same farmhouse he'd lived in since 1954. The house nobody thought he could afford to improve, but he chose not to. His funeral was attended by hundreds: former employees, equipment dealers, bankers, neighbors, family, strangers who'd heard the story and wanted to pay respects. Rick Patterson gave the eulogy, now 83 himself, retired 20 years, but couldn't miss this. Henry Chen taught me the most important lesson of my career: never judge by appearance. 38 years ago, he walked into my dealership wearing patched coveralls, driving a truck held together with wire and hope. I thought he was broke. He handed me a check for $2 million, changed my life, changed how I saw people, changed how I did business. Henry lived poor for 41 years while being rich, not because he had to, because he chose to. That choice built $7 million, secured his family's future, proved discipline works. Some say Henry was too cheap, too frugal, too focused on money. Maybe they're right. But Henry lived his values, built his wealth, achieved his goals on his own terms. That's success, not everyone's definition, but it was Henry's, and he achieved it completely. Rest well, Henry. You shut everyone up with $2 million in cash. The lesson lives forever. Wealth hides, success disguises. Never judge by appearance. We'll miss you, but we'll never forget the lesson. The poorest-looking millionaire. The man who proved appearance means nothing. The legend in patched coveralls. Thank you, Henry, for teaching us, for showing us, for proving it's possible. Rest well. Standing ovation. 5 minutes. Tears everywhere. The poorest-looking millionaire had left his mark. Henry Chen. 1926 through 2009. 83 years. 41 years farming, 7 million accumulated, all because he looked poor while being rich. The dealer thought he didn't have a penny. Henry paid $2 million in cash, shut everyone up. That's power, that's legacy, that's Henry Chen. The story that never gets old, the lesson that always matters, the proof that discipline wins, wealth hides, success disguises. Never judge by appearance, always look deeper. Henry taught it, Rick learned it, the world remembers it. $2 million in cash, patched coveralls, no apologies, just results forever.